The Epstein Files aren't really about Jeffrey Epstein. They're about the financial system that protected him, the network that funded him, the institutions that made sure he never had to answer for any of it until he couldn't be silenced anymore. And buried inside those files is a name that almost nobody in mainstream media is talking about: the Rothschilds. Here's what most people think about Jeffrey Epstein. They think he was a wealthy, well-connected predator who built a private island and used it to blackmail powerful men. And eventually, he got caught. That's the version the media wants you to accept, because it makes the story about one man. But here's the thing. Epstein didn't build his financial empire alone. He didn't get access to the most powerful people in the world because he was charming. He got access because he was useful to a network that was already there before he arrived. The money didn't come from nowhere. And the protection that kept him operating for decades didn't come from nowhere either. When you understand who that network was and how the money actually moved, the Epstein case stops being a story about one man. It becomes a story about a system that is still operating right now. And when that Rothschild bank was raided earlier this year, that investigation didn't just open a financial case. It cracked open the same network the Epstein Files point directly at. In this video, who the Rothschilds were to Epstein, how the money actually moved between them, what the bank raid uncovered, and most importantly, what this system means for your money right now. To understand the Rothschild-Epstein connection, you have to understand what the Rothschild family actually is, because most people get this wrong. They're not just wealthy. Wealth is easy to understand. The Rothschilds built something different. They built the first international banking network, a system that could move money across borders at a time when every country had its own currency, its own rules, its own gatekeepers. That network survived 2 world wars, the rise and fall of empires, and every financial crisis of the last 2 centuries. And by the time Jeffrey Epstein entered the picture, it was still running. Epstein's early career is where the connection starts, before the island, before the private jets, before the headlines. In the 1980s, Epstein was working as a financial consultant and money manager specifically for ultra-high net worth individuals. The kind of clients who don't advertise their wealth. The kind of clients who need someone they can trust to move money quietly and efficiently across jurisdictions. The documented overlap with Rothschild-connected financial institutions during this period isn't a conspiracy theory. It's in the financial records. It's in the client lists that have slowly surfaced through the courts. And once you see that chain, who introduced Epstein to whom, who vouched for him, who moved money alongside him, you can't unsee it. Because Epstein didn't get into those rooms by accident. Someone held the door open. Chapter 2. How the money actually moved. This is the part most coverage skips, because it's complicated. And complicated stories are easy to ignore. But this is also the part that matters most, because once you understand how elite wealth moves, you stop wondering how Epstein got protected. You start seeing exactly why he was protected. Ultra-high net worth individuals, we're talking about generational wealth. Billions don't hold their money in the same accounts you and I use. They hold it in structures, trusts, foundations, shell companies registered in jurisdictions with strict secrecy laws. The Cayman Islands, Luxembourg, Jersey, Liechtenstein. The money technically belongs to the structure, not the individual, which means it moves differently, it's taxed differently, and it's protected differently. What someone like Epstein provided to clients at that level was access. Access to the structures, access to the jurisdictions, access to the intermediaries who knew how to move money across borders without triggering the reporting requirements that apply to you and me. The documented evidence shows Epstein managing assets for clients in structures across multiple jurisdictions simultaneously. Now here's where it hits you. The regulations that govern those offshore structures, who can use them, how they're reported, what gets disclosed. Those regulations are shaped by the same banking institutions that benefit from keeping them opaque. The Rothschild family's banking network is among the most significant players in that regulatory environment. They don't just benefit from the rules. In many cases, documented through public lobbying records and EU financial regulation hearings, they help write them. Epstein was operating inside a financial architecture that those institutions had spent decades building. So, who sat above Epstein in this structure? The Epstein Files. The documents that have been released through ongoing court proceedings paint a picture of a network that wasn't just social. Names you recognize, politicians, tech billionaires, royalty, academic institutions, financial firms. But what the files show isn't just who knew Epstein. It's who used him, and for what. Ghislaine Maxwell's role is more important here than the headlines suggest. The coverage focused on her crimes, which were real and documented. But her background matters in a way that's been underreported. Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was one of the most connected media and intelligence-adjacent figures in Europe before his death in 1991. His relationship with financial institutions across the UK, Eastern Europe, and Israel gave Ghislaine a network she walked into the moment she arrived in New York. Epstein plugged into that network, and through it, access to institutions, to individuals, and to financial structures that traced back to some of the oldest money in Europe. Here's what the files show about consequence. The kind of friction that comes when the institutions you're investigating are the same institutions that fund the international bodies overseeing you. It's the same pattern we traced on this channel with the petrodollar system, where the countries that tried to exit the structure didn't just face economic consequences. They faced destabilization. This network protects itself, not with violence, with access, with capital, with the quiet removal of anyone who gets too close. Epstein was part of that protection mechanism, until he wasn't useful anymore. Which brings us to what just happened. Earlier this year, Rothschild and Company's French operations were the subject of a significant investigative action by French financial prosecutors. The investigation connected to broader inquiries into offshore financial structures and historic tax avoidance mechanisms sent a clear signal. This isn't the first time a Rothschild-connected institution has faced regulatory scrutiny. The Epstein Files were being released in tranches at the same time. The documents pointing to the financial architecture around Epstein, the jurisdictions, the structures, the intermediaries were landing in public court records, while investigators in France were simultaneously pulling documents from one of the oldest banking institutions in Europe. What were they looking for? Based on the public filings from the French prosecutor's office, evidence of historic management of assets for clients in jurisdictions structured to avoid disclosure requirements. In plain language, money that moved through systems designed not to be seen. What's been disclosed so far is limited. These investigations move slowly by design. Financial cases at this level take years. But here's what matters right now. The investigation is active. The documents are being reviewed, and the connection between the financial architecture the Epstein Files expose and the structures Rothschild and Company operated in the same jurisdictions, that connection is no longer speculative. It's in the public record. What gets buried in the next 30 days matters, because these investigations have a history of going quiet exactly when they get close to something significant. Here's where most documentaries lose me. They tell you the story, and then they leave you there. So let me be direct about what this actually means for you. The financial structures that Epstein operated inside the offshore trusts, the opaque jurisdictions, the regulatory gaps, those structures still exist. They haven't been closed. They haven't been reformed. Why not? Because the institutions that benefit from keeping them open are the same institutions that fund the regulatory bodies that would need to close them. That's not a conspiracy. That's a documented lobbying pattern visible in EU financial regulation records, in IMF structural adjustment reports, in the Basel Committee proceedings that set global banking rules. And here's how it connects to you directly. The interest rate on your mortgage, the savings rate on your account, the inflation that's been eating into your paycheck for 3 years. These numbers aren't set randomly. They're set by institutions, central banks, international financial bodies that operate in the same ecosystem as the networks we've been talking about. An ecosystem where elite capital gets protected through structure, while the costs of that protection get distributed downward to you. People who don't understand how this system works are the ones it hits hardest. Not because they're naive. The Epstein Files aren't closed. The Rothschild investigation isn't closed. And the financial architecture, they both point at the system that moved money across borders, protected the people inside it, and passed the cost to everyone outside it. That system doesn't collapse slowly. It breaks suddenly. And when it does, the people who saw it coming will be the ones who understood how it worked. If this video helped you see how it works, subscribe.